Welcome, everyone. This is Yvonne Davis, your traveling warrior astrologer. And I have some things to say regarding the post-election astrology analysis, plus my rebranding of my channel. So the first thing I want to say is that as I've thought about how I want to address what's happening right now, the first thing I want to say is I'm really going to try to be like emotionally balanced, because I still have a lot of emotions running through me, and I know that there are a lot of people out there who are still in trauma, and I want to be respectful of that. So I'm really going to try to be emotionally balanced and just talk about the astrology and what's happening and see if we can understand it from an astrological lens. Okay, today, as I'm making this video and plan to upload it, Mercury enters its shadow in Sagittarius. What that means for those of you who are not familiar with that language, that means that today it enters the degree at which it returns when it stations retrograde, okay? So it will go forward, and I think the degree is like 23 degrees or something like that, where it stations retrograde in Sagittarius. And that's an important degree because actually Venus is at that degree in a trine to Chiron, a fire trine, when Mercury enters its shadow. And I do think this is actually important. Venus is the planet of love and relationships and all the things that matter to us and that we value. And the fact that she is in a trine to Chiron at the time that Mercury is entering its shadow, and that they're both in Sagittarius, which is the sign of truth, and like understanding what the truth is and our belief systems and how we communicate those belief systems out into the world and how we, in a sense, codify them in the world, okay? Politics is one of the ways that we do that. Public speaking is one of the ways that we do that. So one astrologer that I had heard, which was Dan Waits, he had predicted recently that he thought Kamala Harris was going to win the election. Many astrologers, many tarot readers, many psychics predicted that Harris would win. And so now we look at the results and we say, why didn't that happen? Why did so many astrologers, tarot readers, and psychics get it wrong? Well, one of the things I will say is that one of the reasons that Dan Waits pointed to was that Chiron actually played a role in the advancement of many women's issues. And so the idea that Harris would win the presidency was like an advancement of women's issues, women's equality, women's freedom. So since that didn't happen, I still think we need to look at the astrology and look at it deeper and start asking some questions, because intelligent people take responsibility and they get curious. They don't go into the blame game, which so many people are doing right now. And I just don't think that does any good, because, you know, all the way back in 2016, when Trump was elected, I was asking questions. I was curious, like, what is this about? But it seemed like so many people had already made up their minds what it was about. And there were people that I respected. So I thought, well, I guess that must be true. So I stopped being curious and I started thinking that we just needed to point out everything that was wrong, and then people would get a clue and, you know, that would solve the problem. Well, then when Biden got elected, I said, you know, this problem isn't just going to go away. But that's what we wanted to believe, that the problem would just go away. We got rid of Trump. Trump's gone. He's never coming back. We're done. We don't have to listen to what those other people need or want, because it's done. It's over. We got rid of him. And I knew that wasn't really true. I knew that they weren't going away. I knew that even if Harris got elected, they weren't going away. So, you know, I just can't go back into that way of thinking. I've been struggling with it for a long time, because Astrology is not really for prediction. We can use it for prediction. We can predict worldly events. That's called mundane astrology. We can predict personal events. That's called predictive astrology, where we can find the timing that events will unfold and we make predictions around that. And yes, we can do that, but that's not really what astrology is for. The purpose of astrology is to look deeper, to expand our consciousness, to do a self-reevaluation based on what we see in the astrology. It helps us to understand our karma. It's like looking in a mirror, and then we can say something about what do we need to understand? Why is this happening? How can the astrology help us to understand what's happening so that we can do that consciousness evolution work? That's its real purpose. And so I always knew that. And so I always struggled with this idea of my channel just being strictly predictive astrology or mundane astrology, but that's what sells on YouTube. So that's what I kept doing. But then I found out later, it's like, no, there are a lot of astrologers out there who are doing general astrology and they're focused on consciousness evolution and they're doing quite well. Actually, they were doing better than my channel. And I thought, I need to follow my heart. I need to get into alignment with my own integrity and what I believe is the purpose of astrology, which is consciousness evolution. And furthermore, I do think that that's actually what's going to solve this problem in the long run, not just predicting that, oh, he'll never be president again. I will say that my prediction was always that he would not be inaugurated. And I said that because of where Mars is debilitated and retrograde in his 12th house. And he has what's called a day chart, which means that Mars retrograde is harder for people with a day chart. So he had like 4 strikes against him. Plus, Pluto was moving back into Aquarius, which is what happened when he was first indicted. And thirdly, Uranus is over his midheaven square to his ascendant in his natal Mars. And none of these things have ever been good for him. So I thought, okay, how could he possibly be inaugurated? That wouldn't make any sense. So I'm actually not rejecting or reinforcing my prediction. What I am saying is that it's still possible that that will end up being true. Okay, that prediction will end up being true. It is still possible. However, I'm not going to double down on it because even if it turns out that he is not the one inaugurated on January 20th, it doesn't, in my opinion, actually matter in the long run because it looks like the Republicans are going to end up controlling all branches of government, which means that they'll put their people into the agencies, they'll control the agencies, they'll control the budget, and pretty much have carte blanche to do whatever they want. So I'm not sure that Trump or little me, mini me Trump is going to make that much difference. Maybe some of you do, but I don't. So I don't see what good it actually does to double down on that prediction, even if it does end up being true, because we've still got this problem, which we've had for the past 8 years, and it actually goes back farther than 8 years. It's just that we've seen it. It's been more visible to us in the past 8 years. And I believed 8 years ago we needed to look at the reason why. People didn't want to. They just wanted to get rid of Trump. I believed 4 years ago we needed to start looking at it because it wasn't going away. People didn't believe me. Now here we are. Trump was elected and he won the popular vote. And we need to look honestly at why that happened. And we don't, going into blame and shame and criticism and finger pointing is actually not going to get us anywhere. And shame is the lowest vibration. I don't want to shame anyone. I don't want to shame any of you. I don't want to shame myself. I don't want to shame Republicans. And a lot of people out there are. They're saying that, these people are just awful. Why would they possibly vote for someone like Donald Trump? They must be awful. And I can't buy into that because a large percentage of what we call swing voters or independent voters, that percentage, a lot of them voted for Obama twice. A lot of them voted for Hillary Clinton. A lot of them voted for Biden 4 years ago. Why would that percentage of people suddenly go over to Trump or choose not to vote at all? And some people will find other reasons, like they'll say, well, it's young male voters. There are so many young male voters now voting for Trump. Well, I still have to ask the question, why do they feel more represented by Trump? Why don't they feel the Democrats represent them? Or even men of color, why do they not feel the Democrats represent them more than Trump would represent them? That's an important question to ask. And it's not just because they're evil or that, certainly men of color can't be really racist. Why would they vote for Trump? Why would all these young white men vote for Trump? Why don't they feel represented by the Democrats? We can't just be the party of women. We can't just be the party of people of color. It's a country. All of these people are part of the country, and the president has to be the president for all of these people. We still have to listen. They still need to feel represented, or they're disenfranchised. And just because they have always been privileged in the past doesn't mean they no longer matter, doesn't mean that they have to become disenfranchised. That's not right. Any more than women who were feminists and wanted equality became militant feminists and made men the enemy. It's just another version of that, and it doesn't work. When you lift yourself up by making somebody else wrong and making them the enemy, it's not going to work. I can absolutely assure you, because we've seen that, and it doesn't work. And I don't want to take a page out of the Republican playbook and make it our playbook. I have always felt we need to take the higher ground. We need to be the ones who are evolving our consciousness so we can evolve the consciousness, the general mass consciousness, the core consciousness of this country, and integrate. And that's how we'll heal. We won't heal by making them the enemy, making them bad, making them evil, saying that they're all racist or they're all sexist. It just won't work. So again, I know I'm passionate about these issues, and I don't want to get into such intense passion that I start lecturing, and because it's not anybody's fault, and I don't want anyone listening to this to think that that's what I'm doing, because I know that I can sometimes come across that way when I get really passionate about an issue. It's because I care. I care about this country. I care about all the people in this country. And I think that we have been suffering actually for a very long time. And this is a symptom. The division in this country is a symptom of our woundedness and our shadow. And when you see your shadow, it requires integration. Anyone who knows anything about Jungian psychology knows that. And that's what people who do consciousness evolution work do. They focus on not only expanding the consciousness, but they focus on healing. They focus on integration, shadow integration. That's what this is all about. I have tried to make videos about this in the past, and they just go over like a lead balloon. And that's why I stopped doing it. And I said, well, I guess my viewers just want to know who's going to win and who's not going to win. But I've had a problem with that for a long time. And I made a decision I wasn't going to do it anymore. I had made my last predictions earlier this year. And now, I'm not going back. I've rebranded my channel. I'm going to focus on consciousness expansion. I'm going to focus on general astrology and using astrology for consciousness expansion, not for mundane predictions, like predicting election outcomes. Because I do not think that it does anyone good in the long run. Whether I make the prediction correctly, which yes, does feel good, it feeds my ego, and maybe it makes other people happy because then they don't have to worry about what's going to happen in the future. But because I overestimated, I was overly optimistic about what could or could not happen. And so when I looked at the alignments, they aligned with what I already believed, that this could not happen again. And so when I read the alignments, I thought that's what they're saying. And again, that could still come true. There are still almost 3 months. Well, closer to 2 months. No, 3. Yeah. 2 to 3 months until inauguration. So yeah, something could happen in between. But again, I don't think that solves the problem. There is a deeper, more fundamental issue here that we have to look at. And to me, that's what the astrology is saying right now, with Mercury entering its shadow. And as at the moment today, which is November 7th, 2024, as Mercury is entering its shadow, that Venus is at like 23 or 24 degrees, this basically the same degree that Mercury retrogrades, in a trine to Chiron. This is about trying to bring about healing. And I am begging people. I know that when people watch this video, tons of them are going to unsubscribe and just not want to have anything to do with my channel anymore. It's not what they want. They want to hear a different message. And I get that. And in fact, I literally lost 20 subscribers overnight because they saw what happened on the election, and they came back to my channel and they, probably thought, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about, so I'm unsubscribing, and that's fine. I'm totally at peace with that because I need to build a new audience of people who want consciousness expansion, who want to look deeper at what's happening in our country and understand that if we evolve ourselves, we evolve our nation. That's how it works. Consciousness expansion comes from each individual and goes up into the morphogenic field. It doesn't come from the bottom. Doesn't come from the top down. So you can elect a president, and it's still good if it's someone that you feel represents your values. It's still good, but it will not change the nation as a whole. It has to come from the bottom up, not from the top down. Okay, and we're seeing that right now. Electing Biden did not change what was fundamentally in our collective consciousness. Okay, he wasn't able to change it from the top down just because we elected him. What was there in the collective consciousness was still there, still waiting to come back up, our shadow, for us to look at and integrate and listen. Okay, so that's what I want my channel to be about. So I need to draw in and attract an audience that wants that wants to build a community around that. Okay, and so it's okay if people unsubscribe, because the algorithm thinks that people who just want mundane astrology predictions, they want to go to a channel that does that. My channel is not going to focus on that anymore. And so for the algorithm to think that that's what my channel is about, because people who want that watch my channel, it's going to confuse the algorithm. And furthermore, when people watch a video of mine and then they go away because it's not what they wanted, or they unsubscribe because it's not what they wanted, again, it makes the algorithm think that people don't like my channel. But there are actually loads of people out there who do like general astrology and who do want consciousness expansion and self-awareness, and who are very intelligent and do want to take responsibility for what happened and are really curious about it and do want to understand it. And that's the community I want to build. Those are the viewers I want to attract. So I hope all of you watching this right now, you got this far. I hope you're on board with me and stick around. We could do good work together. And I'm excited about that. I am not depressed anymore. I was in serious grieving for the past 24 hours. But I let myself grieve deeply. I was grieving very deeply yesterday. And I'm sure there's still a little bit there. I can still feel myself getting a little weepy right now. But it's less about the winning or losing, and it's more just about pain in this country, because I know there are a lot of people in pain. And that's, I feel for them. And I feel for people in other countries too. And how we might be connected to them in some way, and the grieving process that they may be going through. So I definitely feel for people who are in pain and grieving right now. But I also feel that I have to be honest about what I think will actually make the world a better place. Because if I'm not in alignment with that, if I'm not being honest about it and authentic, I'm not doing anybody any good. The truth is, I'm really not. And I just simply don't believe that doing mundane astrology and making predictions about the world is what it will actually bring about change. I think we need to use it for its purpose that it was meant for, which is consciousness expansion. So getting back to the thing about Mercury entering its shadow today, November 7th, And Venus in Sagittarius, also in a trine to Chiron, is about healing, okay? Venus, again, is the planet of love and relationships and values, the things that really matter to us. And she is in a trine to Chiron. And there is a wounding here that needs to be healed. And so that trine is important in itself, but the fact that it's at that very degree in sign that Mercury is going to station retrograde, that's not an accident. That's not a coincidence. There is deep meaning in that. And if we're willing to listen, we could do something really, really powerful with this Mercury retrograde. So the other thing I want to say is today, as it's entering its shadow with that Venus in Sagittarius, again, I think it's like 23 or 24 degrees in a trine to Chiron, attempting to bring about healing. At the same time, Mercury in Sagittarius, which again, Mercury is the way we think. It's the way we create our reality because we take information in, it's filtered through our belief systems, and then we put that out into the world through our own self-expression. That's how we create reality. So Mercury is all about how we think and communicate, and to some degree what we believe. That's also tied in with Sagittarius, but it's also about our personal reality and how we create that reality. And it's in Sagittarius, which is the greater collective beliefs, okay? And so Sagittarius is looking for truth. It is the great philosopher. And when it seeks out truth and it creates a philosophy around that, or a study of truth, what is the truth, then it codifies that into our collective knowledge and wisdom and belief systems and our collective consciousness. So Mercury in Sagittarius is not an accident. Mercury going retrograde in Sagittarius is not an accident, okay? And it's also going to oppose Jupiter. And when it opposes Jupiter, that's when people are going to get into conflict. I'm right, you're wrong. And righteousness is the shadow of Jupiter. What we need is integration, okay? Not conflict, not I'm right, you're wrong, but integration. That's the only thing that will lead to healing. So it's no coincidence that Mercury is entering its shadow in Sagittarius with Venus in Sagittarius at the same degree. Mercury will go retrograde in a trine to Chiron, the planet of healing. And at the same time that Mercury is entering its shadow in Sagittarius, it is trining Mars at the degree that Mars will go retrograde. So these two retrogrades are definitely tied together. And in fact, I think the Venus retrograde in early 2025 is actually part of this as well. And there will be 2 Mercury retrogrades. So all 3 planets, including Jupiter, which I sometimes include as an inner planet, are all retrograde, are all going into retrograde, and will be retrograde until mid-April. So we've got quite a few months of this integration work, okay? Deep soul searching and integration work. And we can be really super excited about it. Anyone who's willing to do the work, we can. This is it, you know? It's not about sitting, you know, being a Monday night football critic, sitting in your armchair revolutionary, armchair critic, whatever you want to call it, and pointing fingers and making blame. No, doing the work is about doing the work. And it is about deep soul searching and looking for truth and looking for how we create our reality personally, how we put that into the collective consciousness, the morphogenic field, and how that creates our collective consciousness. And the idea of it's us against them will never lead to healing and integration and bringing about a stronger, more resilient, more powerful country in the sense of empowered. It will only weaken us and divide us further, you know, if we stay in that division, if we stay in that blame game instead of actually doing the work. So I can get excited about it. I hope you can get excited about it. We can all get excited about doing the work because that's what will actually bring about change. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with using the legal system or using the election system to try and bring about change. There's nothing wrong with that. But it didn't work, So it's karma saying, you got to look deeper. You've got to look deeper. You've got to do the deeper, harder work. So that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm committed to doing. That's what I hope you are here for. So anyways, today, Mercury enters its shadow in Sagittarius, trine to the degree that Mars will station retrograde in Leo. It is also in a trine to the North Node, the direction of our evolution. And that means it's also in a sextile to the South Node. And the South Node is the past and all the knowledge that we already carry, all the experience that we already carry. The South Node isn't bad, okay? The South Node is just the bucket of things that we carry. Some are good, some not so good, some useful, some not so useful. It's not about judging it good or bad. It's about understanding that we can gain wisdom from the things we already know, the things we've already experienced. And we can use that to then move into the North Node, which is the direction of our evolution, okay? So we can look at what we already know and we can gain wisdom from that. And again, it's not about blaming. We already tried that 8 years ago. We already tried that 4 years ago. If we're going to go back to doing the same thing we did 8 years ago and the same thing we did 4 years ago, we're just going to play that same game. We're going to get the same results. And that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and thinking you're going to get a different result. And I don't consider myself to be insane, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to listen to why right now, 2 days after election day, 1 day after we got the results, is the day that Mercury in Sagittarius enters its shadow, with Venus at that degree that Mercury will retrograde, trine to Chiron, the wounded healer. With Mercury in a trine to the degree that Mars will go retrograde in Leo, in a trine to the North Node, and in a sextile to the South Node. It's not a coincidence. It's very powerful, very karmic. And it's an invitation to healing and consciousness expansion and empowerment. And I'm excited about it. And I'm not going to stop being excited about it, no matter how many people unsubscribe. So again, if you're still listening, you're still here with me. That must mean that you think what I'm saying probably rings true, that there is some truth in it, that there is some wisdom in it, and that by following what the stars are mapping out for us is going to take us down a better path in the long run. So what I will do is I will come back later when the next most important alignment happens. And I'm not exactly sure what day that will be for this process, but I do know that Mercury will reach an opposition to Jupiter. Jupiter, I believe it's still going to be retrograde in Gemini. So they're in mutual reception, which is actually good. They're considered in their fall and detriment, whatever. I can't ever keep track of which one's the fall and which one's the detriment, but I think that maybe they're both in detriment. But anyway, that means that they're debilitated, which means they don't function as well. I really don't buy into that idea. I understand it. I understand why astrologers use it, but I think it implies that they just simply can't function, and that is absolutely not true. All it means is they are functioning in a different way than the way they normally function, the way they're comfortable functioning. So when they're in their detriment and they are in mutual reception, they can feed each other, they can help each other out. And that's the whole thing that I'm saying, is that if we go into conflict with the opposition, that's righteousness and narrow-mindedness, and that is not going to lead to healing and integration. But if we stay open and we we take advantage of the energy of the mutual reception. That can lead to wisdom, healing, and integration, shadow integration, okay, for both us personally and as a nation. Because again, every time we heal ourselves and evolve our consciousness, we put that into the morphogenic field and we raise the collective consciousness. And many people have done work on this and they've proved it. So we're not just making this up, you know. So anyway, that might be the next time I touch in on this, is when Mercury is in an opposition to Jupiter, and just seeing what's happening, seeing what people are saying. Because right now people are already getting into the blame game. And they're saying it was this and it was that, and people are evil, and why would they vote for someone like that? They must be evil, or they're stupid, or they don't know what's going on. They're ignorant. And I just don't buy it. I think that because I think a large percentage of those people did vote for Obama twice, and did vote for Hillary Clinton, and did vote for Biden, but didn't show up to vote for Harris. And the question is why? Not because she's a person of color, not because she's female. If they voted for Obama, if they voted for Hillary Clinton, there's no reason why they wouldn't vote for her. You know, it had nothing to do with who they are. Had nothing to do with their identities or their personalities, or that they didn't have enough time to run a campaign. It had to do with people being dissatisfied with what the Democrats had to offer for the past 4 years. And even if that's an issue of messaging, then the Democrats need to get better in messaging. But what they really need to do is get better at bringing about an experience of people feeling represented, that their needs, their values, their desires, their longings, who they are, what they want, what they believe, are represented by the Democrats. Because if they're not, if they don't feel that way, if that's not their experience, they will not vote for the Democrats. And, you know, that's what we're experiencing right now. And we'll see what the outcome will be over the next 2 to 4 years. And I'm not going to sit around playing the blame game. I think it was related to the economy, and I might do another video on that. But right now, this is just about looking at the astrology and saying, what is the astrology trying to teach us right now? And later, when we get, you know, closer to the inauguration, of course, we'll find out what happens between now and then. But I'm just going to go ahead with the assumption that Trump will be inaugurated, because even if he's not, I don't think it changes the landscape that much. And if he is, then I need to reevaluate and ask myself, why did these alignments appear to say that Trump was not going to be elected? Not about election fraud or anything like that. Again, I'm not going to take pages out of the Republican playbook. I have too much respect for this country and the electoral process, the election process, and all the people who work really hard to make that efficient and honest. And a lot of them are volunteers, don't even get paid. And I'm not going to insult them by saying that the election was stolen. We need to look at the deeper reasons. And that's what this Mercury is about. And it's going to do many, many things along the way. And that's what the Mars retrograde is about. And that's what the Jupiter retrograde is about. And that's what the North Node is about. And that's what Venus trine Chiron is about. In fact, not just Venus Chiron trine, but also when Mercury stations retrograde at that same degree. That's what it's trying to do. It's trying to bring healing. Let's do it. Okay, let's do it. And that's also where the sun will be at that Sagittarius Gemini full moon. So that's very interesting to me, that on the moment Mercury enters its shadow, Venus is at that degree trine to Chiron, and then Mercury will retrograde at that degree trine to Chiron, and then the sun will be at that degree trine to Chiron at the time of the full moon. Again, this is not a coincidence. So let's do the work together. Let's be excited and empowered about doing the work together. And let's move into the future with hope and love in our hearts. So thank you for getting this far and listening to me and sticking with me. And I hope we can continue down this path together. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you're still grieving, allow yourself that time. All right, I'll see you again in the next video. Bye-bye.